Hello, firearms friends. Joel Colander here for Rock Island Auction Company. Today, I'm joined by our lead historian, Seth Isaacson, and we're going to go over kind of one of the hot topics in the firearms community and basically most of the TV watching community. And that would be one of the prequels to the Yellowstone series or universe, 1923. I had the privilege of binge watching all weekend in order to prepare for this video. It's very hard work. It's a fantastic series. It's really good. It's anchored by Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren, and I've been very impressed with these first 6 episodes. But we're going to talk about, as we are wont to do, the firearms that are in 1923. They fall kind of into 3 different genres. You have your Western genre, you have your Great War genre, and you have African big game or dangerous game hunting genres. As you can see, we're going to get started with some of the African game series. Now, before we go into this, it goes without saying there's going to be some spoiler alerts. So if you haven't watched the series and you plan to, pause the video now and come back and watch it later because there will be some spoilers. But let's talk about these African guns.
We're going to start with some of the African hunting scenes from episode 1. So go ahead and hit it, Joel, with Spencer Dutton.
Episode 1. He just shot and killed this charging lion, giant male lion, a man-eater.
She walks up on for some reason instead of...
In the tall grass.
In the tall grass. You know, good idea in Africa.
And here we get sort of a second look. We get an earlier look where he's drawn, waiting on this lion. And here we get a first close-up look as he's ejecting his spent casings. A nice double rifle.
Like the one we've got before us. If you take a look at Spencer's rifle, you can see it's a double rifle. You can tell that it's got kind of an express-style sights. It looks like he's got probably the rear one flipped up, which is kind of unusual because it looks like he shot it at basically point-blank range that you'd think would actually be down for that range. But, you know, maybe he had it up for another reason.
This one, actually, we did a really good job in identifying in our blog as a Sabati, which would have been an Italian, like a modern version of this. Mm-hmm. But obviously they're trying to evoke the Holland and Holland double rifles, the Purdy's of the time. And they've done a pretty good job for that.
Definitely.
Now, secret bonus, and we'll get to it later, but we both noticed a little leather flap holster there on his right hip.
A little bit of backup just in case. You only get 2 shots of the double rifle, and even with the ejectors and everything, it can be hard to reload underneath pressure.
Especially as you're in the tall grass with large male African lions. And you look at the footage, we talked about how appropriate the guns were in the outfits, but the outfits and even the actors, this guy is the spitting image of this American archetype hunter, Teddy Roosevelt, your Hemingways, your Rourkes, this is it. This is the image of American 1920s African big game hunters. So, good work, 1923.
If you think about it, it fits the 1923 and Yellowstone framework, too, because instead of being on the American frontier, he's on a new frontier in Africa.
Oh, I like that.
So now we're going to take a look at a scene from episode 3. In this episode, Spencer is again in Africa, and he is tasked with taking out some more man-eaters, and he's meeting up with the local guy that has hired him to take these guys out, and we're going to see what that man is carrying. Spencer is still going to be carrying his double rifle.
So 3, he's talking about it. It's going to be a leopard this time. Now we can see from his muzzle already we got a pretty good idea if you know what you're looking for.
Stock profile is pretty giveaway as well.
Yep, right there on the wrist. And the Telltale magazine.
Yep.
So by then we can already pretty clearly identify that as an Enfield design, a British rifle, and oh look.
Oh, we just happen to have one here.
Here we are.
Yeah.
I think would again very appropriate for the 1923 setting. You're looking at post-World War I. Very, very high production numbers of Enfield rifles. 303 would be appropriate for a lot of various African game, dangerous or otherwise. So I think they've chosen wisely.
They've chosen wisely, and you can see you don't get a lot of good glimpses of it, but you can tell that it's not a later Enfield. It looks like it is a World War I era Enfield because it's got the earlier style sights from what we can see. But
if it's built for war, it's built for Africa. You have these big, heavy fins around your front sight to protect it. You have these big, heavy objects. This is a sturdy gun. If it's good enough for the trenches, it's good enough for Africa.
And Lee Enfields are fast, too. So, you have the double rifle because you can get 2 shots off quickly without reloading. in terms of bolt actions, an Enfield is about as fast as you can get. So again, really suitable for Africa.
I like it. Let's check out the next genre in 1923.
So now we're going to go back to episode 1 and look at one of several scenes from the series so far set in the Great War, World War I, and take a look at some of the classic firearms of that era.
So Spencer's our Great War veteran, and in episode 1, he's having a bit of a flashback, but it gives us a nice clip of World War I, and we have the standard ruined, desolate, ashen forest.
He's got a sweet stash going on.
Oh, it's beautiful. Ooh, and there's our first glimpse at our 1917.
He's firing 1917. We can tell it's got some tracer rounds interspersed amongst the regular rounds, which is how they actually would have loaded these.
A proper doughboy helmet. We're shooting at appropriate German helmets.
You don't get a really good look at the Germans, but they're definitely carrying bolt-action rifles, so Gewehr 98s.
As are our Americans. There's a little 1903 that his buddy's retreating with. And belt is empty. Oh.
Yes.
And now we resort to the trench shotty.
So he's got a Winchester 1897. And just devastating. American use of trench guns was actually one of the things the Germans complained about during World War I.
Here we see it not being used in a trench. Here we're seeing a helmet being used as a weapon quite effectively.
Whatever you got.
And then stabbed by a 98. A little hand-to-hand combat.
Looks like the German guys pulled his bayonet, trying to stab him.
Ended by a Colt 1911. So a lot of guns in that scene. That makes me happy.
One man with 3 guns.
One man with 3 guns. Some Germans with some mounted bayonets on a full charge through the ashen forest, which is a little bit of a, I don't want to say stereotype environment for World War I because it's also so appropriate.
It's real, yeah. But you do see it in a lot of movies. You see it in, like,
1917.
Legends of the Fall.
It's Quiet on the Western Front. Like, it's been done. I think they did a really good job putting you behind this 1917 and just showing how quickly someone in that war would have been ending lives.
Oh, definitely.
With a gun, with a water-cooled beauty like that. And just one of the most reliable guns of World War I. So very appropriate. Look at those sights. Those are tall sights.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're firing long range, tip up the sight. You know, they actually did like volley fire, essentially, where they were arcing bullets across. But obviously in this scene, we're seeing in close range. No need to flip that sight up. You're just pulling the trigger and pointing and shooting.
Cloth belts also. Everything's period appropriate. You make me think, well, you said the volley fire, even harassing fire at distance, especially when you have that many rounds going. I suppose that would be in between like artillery range and small arms range. You would have things like this for harassing fire at a long distance. Very neat to see it in action in a TV show, especially a modern TV show. Our trench gun, 97. What a classic. Yeah. I don't know what else we need to say about it, other than anytime you get a scatter gun with like a, almost a foot of bayonet added on the end. Now he didn't have his bayonet on there.
No, but he didn't have much time.
This is true.
He's not going to carry it with the bayonet attached, most likely.
And his sidearm. He was loaded for
ready
for bear, which is, it also seems appropriate.
Well, we can tell things have gone wrong, too, because when he's a machine gunner, his buddy comes and sits next to him for a second and tells him to retreat, but he's a machine gunner by himself. He doesn't have an assistant. There's nobody helping him.
Ammo bearers.
Nothing. And he's pretty exposed. Like, it doesn't look like he's...
Yeah.
He's got, a tree stump for cover, and that's it.
True. And you would have had somebody, like ammo, you would have had somebody transporting the tripod as well. Like, it's getting right down to it for old Spencer. And, of course, the 1911, just 1911. Now, I couldn't see from the clip and how fast it was going if they used a real 19 or replica 1911 versus an A1. But one could assume
hard to say.
With how good they've done, I wouldn't be surprised to see just a regular 1911. And the final genre, part of the setting of 1923 that we'll cover is that on the American frontier. I don't think we need to mention the time frame in which that's happening, but in Montana, you're dealing with the range wars. You have sheep, you have cattle, you have both ranchers vying for land, for grazing rights. The TV show 1923 is focusing primarily on the grazing rights during a drought. And if you can't get grass, you can't feed your livestock, and if you can't feed your livestock, you don't survive. You're not able to make money. You're not able to feed your family. So grass. People are literally going to war over grass, and they make that pretty clear in the series, leading to some pretty violent conflicts, which leads to a pretty nice variety of firearms.
Absolutely.
So let's get our... we're, of course, in Season 1, Episode 3. We're about 46 minutes in, and we're coming up... big spoiler alert, we're coming up on a pretty big gunfight. The gentleman's fiancé has been shot from the woods. They're being ambushed by the sheep farmers, the shepherds, and here we go. We've already got some pretty unidentifiable pistols at this time, although a later scene lets us identify Harrison Ford's. And out come the long gun scabbards to better return fire. At this point, all we're really seeing is 6 guns, although Helen Mirren now has a shotgun crooked in her arm.
Yeah, they look like they had a ton of guns in the wagon, just in case.
And we have our young hero. He has a lever gun slung over his back as well. All very appropriate. You do have some of your earliest semi-autos at this time, some of the Remingtons, but lever guns.
Yeah, but there would have been some semi-autos, but there would have been literally hundreds of thousands of lever guns in circulation by this time period. So
decades of production
Yeah.
versus maybe 10, 15 years by the time they're framing this.
Yep. And they're more trustworthy, and of course they give a better Western setting and a Western feel to the story.
And Helen Mirren's side by side, some Damascus-y looking barrels, and a lot of 6-shooters coming from these enemy horses. There's where we first get the first good look at the side panel for Harrison Ford's gun. We can clearly identify that as a Winchester 94, which I think we mentioned in our blog on 1883 may be this legacy piece, not in 83, I'm sorry, on Yellowstone, as it comes from 1923, and then later on is Kevin Costner's gun in Yellowstone
in the main series. Yep.
Very cool. Looks like Harrison Ford's counterpart also had a Winchester 94.
Oddly enough, it looks like they're shooting black powder too. There's like quite a bit of smoke coming from smokeless guns. Maybe they added a little bit of extra powder to give them some extra muzzle flash to make it interesting.
Yeah.
But
I wonder if they're doing that on purpose, or if that's just like Hollywood blanks and that's how it
Could
works.
be,
like, how much authenticity are they putting into this? Oh, and here we have
this is a bad guy.
the Chicago typewriter. You see that cuts compensator. That's pretty cool that's still on there. So we got a 21 AC, I would assume, in 1923.
Looks like it.
You can see that muzzle flash coming right out the top, keeping things pretty controllable despite how much he's spraying.
Spraying with good effect, it looks like, though.
Yeah, unfortunately for old Harrison Ford. Great stunt, great horseback stunts. Boy, if you like old movies, old cowboy movies, Western movies, to see a stunt like that with someone falling off a horse at full gallop, that's a really cool stunt, you guys. So pretty good representation of what's on screen.
Definitely. Yeah, we've got a lot of the exact models it looks like they're using in the series in-house right now. I mean, we always do, let's be honest.
always do.
We've got thousands and thousands of guns here at all times. So you can bet we're going to have examples of things. So we've got, Ithaca Flues like Helen Mirren has. We've got
A classic design.
classic design.
Well produced. Like, I think there's something ridiculous, like 6 moving parts or something like that for the Flues patent. Very simple, very reliable. Makes sense that they would have that out in the plains.
So we've got a Winchester 1894, which it looks like Harrison Ford and multiple other people in his group have 94s. If you take a look at them all, they all look like they're actually somewhat later production than the 1920s, at least from what we can see, based on like the sights and details like that, which is represented on this example that we've got in front of us as well. But, the 94, in essence, doesn't really change. I mean, the 94 from 1894 till today is still the 94. They didn't change much.
One of the most widely produced weapons of sporting arms that's almost ever been produced. I believe it's on one of our lists. I mean, if you got a 94 carbine with buckhorn sights, you've got yourself a classic. So we do have a Tommy gun here. Confession, it is a 1928.
Yeah.
But we still have, the cuts compensator that we were talking about. Thankfully, they didn't use anything like an M1A1 or anything ridiculous. So we still have our very pronounced four grip right here. We have a nice big drum mag. Everything that you see.
Yep.
And we had a couple pistols in the scene as well. Of course, we seem to have more pistols probably than anything else. Now, what do we have on the table?
So we've got a Smith & Wesson M&P up here in the front, which is what Harrison Ford's character is carrying.
And we see that in an earlier scene too, where he's threatening, the head of the sheep group, and he's
Yeah, you get a
putting it
really
quite
good look
under
at
his
that.
neck. You get a really good look at it, and we're able to identify it. And then what's our second here?
And then later in this gunfight scene, towards the end, you see Helen Mirren walk over to take out one of the bad guys, kind of get some last-minute revenge. And we had a bit of a debate on this. It's kind of hard to
did.
see what the guy's got. He's got a top break, double action revolver of some sort.
And that goes a long way.
It goes a long way.
It narrowed it down for us for either it's Smith & Wesson or it's Webley. I mean, at that time, those are what you're dealing with.
And what we've got is an example of a Webley here. That's what I was leaning towards. In the American West, you might think maybe the Smith & Wesson is more accurate, but again, it's the 1920s. And we've got characters that are coming out of the United Kingdom and Ireland, so a Webley would fit like that character's profile too. So that would also work for sure.
Makes sense. That could have been brought over with. It also kind of sets the characters apart just based on the sets of weapons they're using. Just like a bad guy's always going to get a Luger. Maybe your Irish sheep farmer is going to get the Webley, and while your Americans are going to get the Colts and the Smith & Wesson MPs, things like that.
Definitely.
I like it. So those are the guns in 1923. Now a lot of them, especially Spencer's hunting rifle and things like that, make appearances because it's a prominent piece of the characters that occurs throughout the series. But so we've only gone over a few episodes, but largely that helps identify them, I think. Very good show, lots of good settings. If you like to see a lot of collectible firearms, like I said, we went over one scene, and we've got 5 guns on a table.
And that's probably not all the guns in the scene either. There's probably more that we can't see enough of to say, oh, this guy's got that. I'm sure, like we said, the guys probably have some single action armories, which we could bring those out. There's definitely some other guns going on there.
Oh yeah, it's a fantastic scene. If you like good acting and a lot of firearms, I would recommend 1923. So far, we'll see what season 2 brings, since they have announced that they've signed on for that.
Yeah, so just from this one scene, let alone everything else we've talked about today, you can kind of see how this show's got something for every firearms enthusiast. It's got classic revolvers, it's got classic sporting guns and double rifles and shotguns, it's got Winchester lever guns, and then you've got more modern tech where you've got machine guns, but still classic machine guns. So you've got a little bit of something for everybody.
Yeah, whether Africa, big game, the Old West or Wild West guns, guns of the Great War. I mean, those are 3 huge collecting genres, and they're all in one show. So you can't really go wrong. Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next time, keep your powder dry.